The late afternoon heat pressed down on the gates of Emerald Crest, turning the pavement into a wavering sheet of light. Cars idled in a tense line, their engines humming beneath the weight of privilege and impatience. Vanessa Clark stepped forward, every detail of her appearance, tailored blouse, polished heels, controlled posture, designed to signal one message: she belonged above the chaos. But the elderly gatekeeper standing before her didn't move. "Ma'am, I'll need your access card," he said, voice steady though sweat gathered at his brow. Her jaw tightened. "You know who I am." "I do," he replied, "but the rules apply to everyone." The air shifted. Not a breeze, tension. Raw, electric. "Open." "Gate," she said, each word sharp enough to cut. "I'm sorry," he answered softly. "I can't." Something snapped inside her. A moment too fast to stop, too loud to forget. A crack echoed across the concrete. His body hit the ground. Silence swallowed the gate. Then a black SUV rolled up, brakes hissing. A man stepped out. His confident stride faltering as he saw the crumpled figure on the pavement. "Dad," he breathed. Vanessa's world tilted, because the man she struck wasn't nobody. He was the father of the fiancé whose ring she wore. What follows will test every truth she claims to stand on. If you're still here, like the video and subscribe to Canada's Heartfelt Tales for more stories that hit where it matters. The moment Ethan whispered, "Dad," the world around the gate seemed to contract. Conversations died mid-sentence, engines idled in stunned stillness, and Vanessa stood rooted to the spot, her fingers curling around nothing, as if searching for an anchor that no longer existed. But Ethan didn't look at her. He ran to the old man, dropped to one knee, and lifted him gently. "Dad, can you hear me?" The old man blinked slowly, breath shallow. "Ethan, you're early." His attempt at humor fractured something inside Ethan. He brushed dust from his father's sleeve with the care of a son who had waited too long to show it. When he finally looked up, his eyes met Vanessa's, and they were nothing like the warm, amused gaze she once knew. They were cold, precise, and filled with a disappointment that weighed more than anger ever could. "Get in the car," he said. Not shouted, not demanded, just carved each word into the air. Vanessa stepped back, her voice catching. "Ethan, Not now." The paramedics arrived minutes later. Ethan rode with his father, leaving Vanessa standing outside the estate she once walked into like a queen. The security cameras above her blinked silently, recording every tremor in her hands. That night, the city's humidity pressed against her windows, but she felt cold. Ethan hadn't called. He always called. Even on his busiest days he sent a message. Tonight nothing. Not even a question. That silence frightened her more than confrontation ever could. Hours later she paced the apartment, replaying the moment. His father's startled gasp, the soft thud of his body on the pavement, the horror etched into Ethan's face. She had never meant to cross that line, but intention didn't erase impact. And impact was all the world saw. When the call finally came the next morning, Ethan's voice was stripped of warmth. "My father is stable." Relief loosened her breath, until he continued. "I need you to come to the hospital. We're going to talk in front of him." The hospital smelled of antiseptic and quiet fear. When she entered the room, Cola rested against his pillows, bruises blooming on his cheek. His eyes, gentle, impossibly gentle, landed on her. No accusation, no rage, just truth she wasn't prepared to face. Ethan stood beside him, arms crossed. "Talk." Vanessa swallowed. "Mr. Cole, I shouldn't have. I wasn't thinking." "You were thinking," Ethan said calmly. "Just not about him." His father lifted a hand weakly. "Let her speak." Vanessa's words cracked. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have touched you. I acted out of anger, not intention." Ethan stepped closer. "And if he had died, would you still call it anger?" Her throat tightened. She tried to meet his eyes, but the weight of his disappointment pressed her gaze to the floor. Bloody shame pooled in her stomach. But what shattered her was Cola's whisper. "Child, you may not have known who I am. But you knew I was someone." It was not spoken with bitterness. It was spoken with a quiet, devastating dignity that exposed the truth behind her actions more clearly than any accusation could. Ethan turned away, jaw tight. "There will be an investigation. The footage is clear." She flinched. "Footage?" "Everything," he said. "Every second." The next days unfolded like cracks spreading across a mirror. A shaky clip leaked onto social media. Her raised hand, the slap, the fall, the silence afterward. No names appeared, but the internet didn't need names. They needed a villain. And she fit the silhouette perfectly. Her inbox filled with messages. Some furious, some disappointed, some mocking. Her professional partners distanced themselves. Invitations dissolved. Her name, once spoken with admiration, was now whispered with caution. Ethan didn't shield her. Not because he wanted retribution, because he refused to lie for her. When they finally met for coffee at her request, she barely recognized herself in the reflection of the cafe window. A woman tired, humbled, and cracked open. "Do you hate me?" she asked quietly. "I don't hate you," he said. "But I don't know who you are." His honesty landed harder than any anger would. "I'm learning," she whispered. "I hope so," he replied. "Because learning is the only way you walk out of this with anything intact." Her consequences escalated. The estate filed an official report. The court issued summons. She performed community service at a public hospital, scrubbing floors, assisting nurses, carrying meal carts down long hallways where no one cared who she used to be. On her 5th week, she turned a corner and froze. Cola sat by the window with a walker beside him. He looked up slowly. "Miss Clark." Warmth didn't touch his tone. But neither did venom. "Sure. I didn't know you were here today." "I did not expect to see you either," he said. "Sit if you want." She sat. And for a moment, silence filled the gap between guilt and grace. "I'm trying to change," she said quietly. "Trying," Cola repeated, "is how every real change begins." She looked at his bruises, now yellowed, fading, but still a map of the moment that had altered both their lives. "I wish I could undo it," she whispered. "Wishing is easy," Cola said gently. "Changing is work. You are doing the work." The kindness in his voice made her eyes sting. But she didn't cry. She didn't want pity. She wanted to earn something she couldn't name. Meanwhile, Ethan wrestled with his own storms. At work, a lucrative project landed on his desk, a development plan that would clear out a low-income neighborhood. The board urged him to approve it. "It's legal," one director insisted. "So was what happened to my father," Ethan replied. His refusal sparked arguments, threats of shareholder withdrawal, headlines questioning his leadership. But Ethan didn't falter. He saw now that power meant responsibility, not insulation. When he visited Cola that night, the old man smiled. "You made the right decision." "It will cost us," Ethan said. "All good things cost," Cola replied. As Vanessa continued her service, something unexpected happened. People stopped looking at her for who she used to be. They looked at her for what she was doing now. A nurse once snapped at her for moving too slowly, then apologized later, laughing. "You're learning," she said. "That's all anyone can ask." But the true turning point came when the judge announced her sentence. A public apology, extended community service, and mandatory training in conflict management. Some called it lenient, some called it fair. But for Vanessa it felt just. Weeks passed, then months, and slowly, very slowly, the 3 lives intertwined again. One evening, Ethan invited her to dinner. Not as a partner, not as an enemy, as someone rebuilding herself. She sat with him and Cola at the table, hands folded tightly. "Why did you come?" Ethan asked. "Because facing you both scares me less than becoming the woman I used to be," she answered. The honesty in her voice pierced the quiet. Later, Cola pulled Ethan aside. "She is learning. The question is, are you ready to see her as who she is now?" That night, Ethan thought long and hard. And fate, as always, provided the final test. The estate board offered Vanessa a chance to speak publicly, a televised forum on workplace dignity. She accepted. Her voice trembled at first, but steadied as she spoke. I once believed power protected me. Now I understand it exposes me. And what it exposed, I needed to see. Her vulnerability stunned the audience. Not everyone forgave her. And she didn't ask them to. Then came the moment that sealed her arc. Emerald Crest's committee, after reviewing every detail, every testimony, every step she had taken since the incident, reached a verdict. Vanessa Clark was permanently banned from residency and ownership within the estate. A consequence she could not escape. A reminder she would carry forever. A decision Ethan did not interfere with. When she received the letter, her hands trembled, but she didn't collapse. She nodded, breathed deeply, and whispered, I earned this. That evening, she walked to the gate one last time. The new guard greeted her politely. Ma'am, are you visiting someone? No, she said softly. Just closing a chapter. She turned away from the place where everything had broken. And for the first time, she didn't feel small. She felt responsible. Ethan watched from a distance, hands in his pockets, understanding finally that redemption wasn't about returning to what once was. It was about building something better from what remained. And as Vanessa disappeared into the golden light of dusk, one truth settled unmistakably. The woman who once struck a man to prove her importance was now paying her debt by becoming someone worthy of respect, not forgiveness. Weeks later, the noise around the scandal faded, but the impact remained. What surprised Vanessa most wasn't the punishment. It was the quiet strength she found as she rebuilt her life from the ground up. She no longer walked with the sharp confidence that once hid her insecurities. Instead, she moved with intention, aware now of the weight her actions carried in the lives of others. Ethan saw the shift, not in her words, but in the way she listened, in how she accepted consequences without demanding comfort. Their paths crossed often, each encounter softer than the last, shaped not by the damage behind them but by the honesty they now shared. Cola's recovery continued steadily. Some afternoons, he sat on the balcony of his new apartment, watching the city settle into dusk. One evening, as Vanessa walked by after finishing another long volunteer shift, he raised a hand in greeting. She paused, returned the gesture, and for the first time felt something close to peace. The lesson stitched itself quietly into all three lives. Change does not erase the past, but it can transform what the future becomes. And truth, once faced without excuse, has the power to rebuild what pride once shattered. As the camera pulls back, the city glows beneath the fading sun, and the gate where everything began stands still, no longer a symbol of status, but of the moment their lives turned toward something better. If this story moved you, like, share, and subscribe to Canada's Heartfelt Tales to help us bring more meaningful stories to life.